tonight.
Just not. It's always good news.
Yeah, true.
We're about to have a riveting discussion.
Yeah, sounds like it.
They maybe don't know about all this. They maybe don't know about it. They we're going to talk. Nobody's notified.
Yes, they all have,
Oh, they have? And nobody showed.
because I explained it so clearly.
Good job.
Well, good job.
Well, I have to move, we vote, go home.
Let's have roll call. Call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Hankins,
Here.
Bowersox, Vogel, Triplett,
Here.
Olfest,
Here?
Pregnant,
Here.
Cyrus.
Look for a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 2, approval of the planning and zoning meeting minutes for October 16th, 2023. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the minutes from October 16th.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Item number 5, discuss rezoning cleanups. A, lot of record. B, GF1, rezoning to R1.
So we're revisiting a topic from February. A couple of items that we kind of talked about. You had asked staff to do some additional digging, some additional research. We wanted to present to you what we found. So at our February meeting, we discussed the existing lots of record in Leonard's Place. Those lots are typically 60 foot wide by 108.75 foot deep, with a typical square footage right around 6,500. They do not currently meet the R2 district zoning standards as illustrated in the current zoning code. At the meeting, the commission had asked staff to investigate unintended consequences for changes that we had discussed to the zoning regulations, in particular, creating a new zoning district, reducing the requirements of the R2 district, modifying the lots of record definition in the zoning code. What we found is there are several locations within the community that are non-conforming lots. Specifically, the areas that we wanted to highlight and point out are in the original town as a whole, and specifically the Market Square section of town. I think the history behind that is a long time ago, it was a really wide right-of-way that was used as a farmer's market, so a literal farm to town market situation where vendors would set up and sell their produce, and that was then vacated. But they're very, very old lots is the moral of the story. Much of original town, the lot widths hover right around 50 feet, with the Market Square area dipping into the mid-30s in lot width of originally platted lots. After doing some research, reviewing the P&Z's discussion from February, we've kind of come up with 4 options that we'd like to have you discuss, ask questions, that kind of thing. Option number 1 is no revision to the zoning district or the zoning districts or the regulations. Essentially, the current protocol would stay in place, where if you have a lot that is functioning as a single lot was originally platted as it's more than one lot that doesn't meet the zoning requirements for the zone it's in, they would approach the Board of Adjustment. The city would be able to consider those on a case-by-case basis and make a decision based on the individual situation of that lot. The primary benefit of approaching it this way is you would avoid changes in character to existing neighborhoods. For example, the Market Square area, if you were to allow somebody to go back to the originally platted lots, it would more than double the current density of that neighborhood. Option number 2, which we kind of discussed in February, was create a new R5 zoning district with the specifications of a minimum 55-foot lot width and a 6,500 square foot lot size. This would accommodate a majority of the lots in Leonard's Place. It would still leave non-conforming lots north of Leonard's Place along Stippich, where the lots get a little bit narrower. They're about 55 feet in width. And then obviously it wouldn't address some of the items we talked about in the original part of town. Based on the previous discussion, the commission was concerned with this new district being used for new development. I wanted to reassure the commission that if we were to pursue this approach, we could write the zoning regulations similar to the CTS zoning district, where it cannot be used for new development. It specifically references that it is only to be used on the square or the immediate area around the square. So that it cannot be used for new development, and we would do the same thing. We would restrict the R5 district to be used in the area we intend it to be used in. The third option would be to revise regulations for the R2 district down to the same requirements we discussed above, 5 foot wide, 6,500 square foot lots. And again, it would limit the number of lots we're taking care of. It would still leave some non-conforming lots. And then the other thing is this has a wider impact because it would apply to all R2 zoning districts. So the two most recent developments that were approved with R2 districts are Antler Ridge, just across the dam, and then Creekview Estates up here at the corner of 3rd and Hub. And then the fourth option, and this is the one that the commission had talked pretty extensively about in February, would be to change the definition of the lots of record to allow them to be split back to the original lot lines as platted. If we were to go this route, we've put together a few conditions that we would recommend that definition includes. So the first one being the existing lot of record is comprised of no less than 2 platted lots under the same ownership. And then the existing lot of record is comprised of only whole originally platted lots, but would exclude lots that are previously split. So essentially, if you look at like Market Square in particular, there are homes that sit on 2.5 lots or 3 lots. So that new definition wouldn't apply to those lots. They would still have to seek board adjustment. I know I just threw a lot at you, but those are kind of the 4 options we laid out. We wanted to facilitate the discussion. Our recommendation would be that the commission hold the current policy and not make a recommendation to modify the code.
Well, it seems like options 2, 3, and 4 all still require board of variance approval, right? So it doesn't fix the issue. I mean, personally, I think your recommendation is the one that makes most sense. We don't run into this that often that I know of, that I've seen.
And that was also part of the reason of that thinking. I mean, that I've been working in Polk City since 2018. Kathleen's been here since 2003, and I think she can only recall a few. Like they're very few and far between number of times this happens. And as we were looking, the homes left in Leonard's Place that could be split in a similar manner to the lot that was that kind of started this whole discussion. I think we only counted 2 or 3 of them in the Leonard's Place area. So I think even that just the sheer number of them, I don't know that it makes sense to me.
How onerous was it for that party that did it recently to complete the process? I mean, was it a lot of work for them? Or?
No. I think they thought it went fairly smoothly.
And I think particularly in Leonard's Place, all of those lots are about the same size. They have about the same width. And I think splitting those lots fits the character of the neighborhood. Whereas if we were to do something that is a more blanket solution to non-conforming lots, we could potentially completely alter the way certain existing neighborhoods function.
So no action is what you're looking for?
I mean, if that's what you agree with.
Yeah.
That
makes
seems,
sense.
seems like the best.
Yeah.
We don't want to create a problem with our solution.
I agree.
So then the second item tonight, we kind of visited on this at that same February meeting. We've got several rezonings around town The current zoning doesn't necessarily match the use, the intended use, or it uses a district, really don't want non-governmental entities to have zoned that way. So the first one being area number 1 is 602 West Van Dorn Street. This is the apartment building there off Van Dorn, the Lake Park Apartments. The kind of the origin story of this, well, part of this GF1 district is where your water tower sits. It's where Miller Park is. So that's, we're not recommending consider any action on that. But the area to the southwest, south, and southeast kind of wraps around the apartment building. It is our understanding that GF1 district was originally platted that way to provide a buffer between the apartments and the adjacent residents that was more pronounced than the requirements of buffers at the time of platting. The commission should consider rezoning this to the R3 district to match the use. On this one, staff's recommendation is to not rezone this because the current condition provides a bigger buffer than would technically be required from an R3 to an R1 use. So by leaving it in place, you are being, I think, kind of keeping the intent of keeping that buffer wider. Should that parcel ever redevelop or something like that, then that's something we should consider rezoning, just to clean up that area. But this time, under its current use, we would not rezone that. Area number 2 are several lots along Hillcrest, so directly adjacent to the Onwith White site plan you guys considered here recently. These are the backyards of 5 residential lots along Hillcrest. We have no history as to why this GF1 district exists. Our understanding is it may be something to do with they were either trying to deal with stormwater, they were trying to do the same buffering that they did around the Lake Park Apartments. We don't have a lot of information. We can't confirm any of that, but that would be our educated guess.
We know it had something to do with the Peanut Gallery Park that I don't know about, but Ron does, Ron Anderson. And it was a section of land that encompassed these lots, and when it got transferred from city to whomever, they sold off these lots. So my assumption based on that information is that they just never rezoned them. They did a quick tie and called it good, but I've talked to 2 of the 5 property owners verbally. I've mailed letters to the other 3. The 2 I spoke to, the number one thing is it going to change my taxes? And do I have to pay anything? Nope and nope. We're just cleaning it up so when you go to sell your property, you're not going to have any trouble. Because that's something that I get calls from banks and stuff about, well, why is this zone 2 different things? And so this is going to clean that up in the event they ever need to transfer title.
And then the other thing is your current zoning regulations technically would prohibit those property owners from erecting a garden shed in that area because accessory structure, so there is no primary use for that GF1 district. Therefore, you cannot erect a accessory structure because you can't tie an accessory structure to a primary structure if you don't have one. So because of the zoning differences, they technically couldn't pull a garden shed permit, a fence permit, anything like that. So I think it cleans a lot of that up. And we would recommend rezoning of that area. Area number 3.
Just a question on that one. If we go with the homeowner's preference on that rezoning, what do we still want to proceed if one of them, let's say in the middle of the line, says, no, I want to keep it as is? You know, what, then we'd end up with...
I don't foresee that happening just
Okay.
based on the 3 people that I haven't spoken to.
Okay.
I don't have a history of
Of
issues
okay.
or any reasoning. I mean, there would be no value for them to keep it as it is, I guess.
Yeah, or I should say, the 2 on the end want to keep it
Right.
as is, and the ones that, so we end up with instead of one rectangle now,
Little pieces.
littler pieces.
Yeah, we would definitely rezone it all, but I think a homeowner would have a hard time convincing council what the value in not changing it would be for them, because they gain a lot that's in conformance with use, they gain a lot they can actually do something with. They do all of that at no cost to them, and it doesn't change their taxes, right? So unless they could demonstrate some value that we're missing, I don't think there'd be any reason to go down that path.
So then area number 3 is 516 North 3rd Street. So this would be, current property owner is BHAT LLC. Again, this is another one that's unknown as to why it's in a GF1 district. The future land use plan has it being low density residential. Use is low density residential. So we're not really sure why it's GF1 other than it directly abuts city parcel. So it could have just been something that got rezoned, or the ownership in this area has kind of changed hands several times. So it may have just been something that got left hurt at some point along the way. We would recommend updating the zoning of this parcel to the R1 zoning district to match both future land use plan and its current use. Staff has contacted the property owner, and there is interest in this rezoning happening. There's obviously a little bit of discussion that has to go on for some questions he had and that kind of thing. Is generally in support of this rezoning. Again, this is kind of one of those things where right now, you know, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if something were to happen to that home, he couldn't rebuild it in the current zoning district because it's a non-conforming use in that zoning district. So this is just a cleanup item that essentially makes the lot usable for what it's being used for today, and it matches the future use plan. Area number 4, so this is the current public library and the lot that the city just recently purchased to the northwest. Well, it's not a vacant lot, it had a home on it, but it's the larger lot to the northwest. The existing zoning district is a C2. I think this is a remnant from old zoning philosophy where the library served a commercial-ish function from a traffic standpoint, is zoned a commercial. So because it's a government facility, because the intended use of that open lot to the northwest is a municipal expansion, the thought would be to rezone this to GF1 to meet both the current and intended use of that newer large lot. And then area number.
I just hate to sound like Ron Anderson. I've got to start thinking, but when we zoned it that way, I was actually here then, or
Okay.
when we talked about it, and I mean that was back in the days when we thought of neighborhood commercial and having a local neighborhood dry cleaner as an example.
Okay.
You know, and all of us go to our neighborhood dry cleaner a lot these days, and recognize the importance of those kinds of businesses close in the neighborhood. So I think a lot of the philosophy of what we had in mind, of a bait shop to serve the lake and those kinds of things at this location, that has long since sailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't know that the idea of having commercial right there is a bad one either. I mean, you got Park Creek, you got Broadway. So if the city were to ever, if the city were to ever move the library, rebuild the library somewhere else, I think that is a very good place for a commercial lot, but under its current use and the intended plan moving forward, it doesn't make sense to leave as a C2 parcel at this point. At least in our minds. I won't put it in, but in our minds, the GF1 district makes more sense than. And then area number 5 is right over here, the City Hall parking lot, and then I forgot to mention in our memo, the existing one. And I forgot to mention in the memo, but as part of this, we should clean up the zoning on 5 as well. So right now, those are both in C1 districts. Again, that parking lot's used in a municipal fashion. It's overflow parking for the City Hall. Fire department uses it, the city maintains it, so we view it as a municipal facility, therefore we view it as a GF1 parcel. And then the Masonic Lodge is currently C1, which has more stringent or different requirements, particularly parking, setbacks than the CTS zoning district. And so by cleaning that up, making it a CTS parcel, they would not be required for parking, as well as they would be able to match the setbacks of the city, the town square, if that parcel were to ever sell and redevelop, they wanted to rebuild the building, change the building name. So, because right now, they would be subject to the C1 district requirements, and in our mind, it would be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to meet those requirements.
So I'll be broke record on how much commercial space we still have in the city, and the fact we're growing and continuously utilize prime commercial space, whether it's here right next to us or up at the library, and switch it to government. I think that's a really poor decision to continuously do. I hope that the council and whomever would reconsider putting the police station just north, again, on prime commercial piece of land. We need to diversify our tax structure. We can't rely completely on our residents. So that's my growth, that's my soapbox. And I think it's very short-sighted. I appreciate that we have 6,000 residents and we're gonna grow, but having the police and fire here doesn't make sense to me. If we're growing north and you want it central, this is no longer gonna be central. Plus, this is your community business district. Why wouldn't you focus on community businesses? I mean, I talk to my neighbors, they would like to see a furniture store here. They would like to see this kind of things here, not more government businesses or entities. That's where is that the last two?
Yes.
Did you have a recommendation on others?
So, one, we would recommend, area number one, our recommendation would be to leave it as is. Areas 2, 3, and 4, we would recommend in favor of making changes as suggested.
And 5.
And 5,
And 5.
2 through 5.
And on 1, well, first of all, are you looking for a motion, or are you just looking for our thoughts so that you can come back to us at a future meeting with an official rezoning plan that we would then recommend?
There wouldn't really be an official rezoning plan that I know of. We would write an ordinance for council to approve.
Okay,
Yep,
That
so
would
this-
be the next piece.
Yeah, this would be a recommendation to council to either initiate or not initiate rezoning.
okay.
Since the majority of the property we're discussing it, I shouldn't say the majority, since a lot of the property we're discussing is owned by the city, we obviously initiate that, and then we would initiate on behalf of the 6 property owners that we're proposing. So the council has to do that because there has to be a hearing for the rezonings. So that's basically what you're telling us is, should council move forward with initiating it or not, or part of it, some of it, none of it.
Okay. And for item 1 there, the Van Dorn is just not making a recommendation enough.
Correct, we would not initiate rezoning on that one. If that's,
Well, I just mean, do we need to make a
nope,
motion to not?
you would just make a motion to recommend to council which things you wanted initiated.
And as part of this, there's not gonna be so anything site plan wise, it would go on, say that large parcel, that the city owns, or if the, one up on Third Street would redevelop, or anything like that, P&Z would then have another shot at. So it would operate very similarly to any other site plan procedure. This is essentially, I view this as when they present to you with their signed petition.
And I would say that I guess I know a little bit about the folks that live around the library as much as I agree and understand where you're coming from. I think if Chelsea were here, her intent would be to share that we want to grow commercial growth, we need commercial growth. The challenge you're going to have in that particular area is someone looked at purchasing that house, they wanted to turn it into a commercial structure, and people started coming out of the woodwork within the 250 feet. It never even got that far to be anything commercial because, of course, just like everything else, nobody wants it in their backyard. I want trails, not in my backyard. I want commercial, but not my backyard. I want a dog park, but not my backyard. And so I think, especially in these original areas, that's a big challenge. I mean, even when Quickstar went in, they came out of the woodwork, and that has been zoned C2 for 40 years. So I think that's probably why the direction is, okay, the library's already there. Everybody's comfortable with the library being there. Everybody says we need a bigger library. Let's just acquire the land so we can have that option. We don't have the funding. I mean, any of the things Travis is talking about from a city growth perspective, we don't have the funding in place. We haven't identified the when or the how. We just know that land is hard to come by. And so in our facility needs assessment plan that was done by a third party, and in our capital improvement plan that we went through, and then we'll be going through a new one here in another year, those things were identified that we need a city hall, we needed this, we needed that. I do agree with you, as we grow north, one of the conversations in the city facilities plan would be that there would be 2 stations, whether that be 2 fire stations. I'm talking 10 years, 20 years from now. So you'd have a fire station here, you'd have a fire station up north of Hug Drive. Just like Ankeny, as you continue to grow, you have to put things in different spots. I don't know how you'd fund it, right? I don't know the hows, but that is something that was discussed when this company came in and looked at our land and looked where we fit and what is beside us and what our annexation agreements are and all those things, and said these are the options we would recommend that you look at over the course of the next 10 to 20 years. That could change in 2 years, right? If you plan out more than 3 years, you're probably going too far. But so that's part of the challenge, is the wheres. Where do you put this stuff? So commercial kind of needs to be there first, I feel like.
So why would you then change something that's C2 to a GF1?
Because it's to match the current use and the intended use from here on out. I don't foresee the library ever moving to any other location.
I know, but it's the land above that, right? Are you changing that too, or just the?
Yeah, the land that's owned beside the library, because the intent of that purchase, now again, don't hold me to this, but the intent of that purchase was for the expansion of the library. We're told that the library outgrew it. We outgrew the library. I don't remember what the facility. Yeah. And so rather than build a whole new library, we would just build onto the existing library. Now, again, I don't know the timing. I don't know any of that, but it's owned by the city, therefore making it a government use purpose. That house is going to come down in the spring is what council decided, right?
Yeah, they're doing isn't that the one they're doing?
Burn in the spring, yeah. So that house is scheduled to be burnt, part of fire department training in the spring, and then it'll be demoed and be graded as it'll be flat.
So it still doesn't make sense to me. I get it that the city owns it, but there is no timeline on a potential library expansion. So if you keep it C2 and something changes in the next 5 years, that something happens, that maybe it makes the perfect sense to put a bait shop and a bakery there for whatever reason, something commercial. Now you're going to have to come back and say, oh, we no longer want GF1, we want it back to C2, right?
Correct.
It would be the city would have to, first of all, have a public hearing to sell it.
Okay.
So you'd have that part first. And then there would be, obviously, any land that, basically we're trying to get it to where all the land that the city owns is under the correct zoning that we just created, GF1. So any piece of land that is owned by the city or has a city government use would be in the GF1 district. In any event that the city then decided to sell any land owned by us, not only would we have to hold a public hearing to sell that property, but then the property owner would have to come back with whatever proposed use it was, whether it was commercial or residential or whatever, it wouldn't matter. And that's part of the intent also on having the GF1 district, is because you can't then just go and sell anything to anyone for any use. It's government use, that's what it was purchased for, with no intent to sell later.
But your argument back to the residents around that is that has been C2 for however long. And so that's not new to them.
Oh, but
Unless
it
they're
will be.
new to the area and then they play dumb, okay.
Yeah.
But the fact is, that seems counterintuitive to me to change that to GF1, even if the city owns it. Because again, we don't have enough commercial space. So why are we taking a prime piece of land out of commercial opportunity because we own it?
Part of the challenge is I'll be honest, I don't know how it ever got to be C2, because that's considered spot zoning in my opinion. There's no other commercial up there. Everything else around there is residential. I mean, I wasn't here.
Well, it
But-
was zoned, commercial when I came on 20 years ago.
Great.
But at that time, we always referred to it as a neighborhood commercial node.
Right.
And
Right, so I think that's another challenge, is if you were to take that piece of land today, regardless of what it was zoned as, and try to put a commercial structure there, that would be a challenge, because it's considered spot zoning. It's not abutting any other piece of commercial property, because the stuff to the southeast would be considered not commercial, because it's all childcare, school zone, all of that stuff. And then you've got the church, which is also not considered commercial. So it would literally be the only commercial lot between Come and Go and there.
and the townhomes on Parker.
Those are not
the townhomes
commercial.
On Broadway were commercial.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we rezoned them to be, residential.
Right.
So it was really commercial all the way from the church to childcare.
Right. And I think and I don't, again, these are all decisions that were previously made. I understand what you're saying. I don't know, with the current council, and I could be wrong, I don't believe they have any intent of selling any land that the city owns. Whether it's now or 10 years from now, by then we'll have, who knows who would be on council or who will be on staff. But I think the city's really focusing on commercial growth to the north and to the east of town. Those are the corridors we're building to make the opportunity for us to get a furniture store, the opportunity for us, everybody wants a bait shop, but then the bait shop says they can't stay open, and everybody wants a pharmacy, but then the pharmacy says they can't stay open. So the hope is if you get enough of the businesses in a concentrated area, they will come.
And I think I agree with Commissioner Triplett on the desire to have more commercial. We've talked about this a lot of time. In this particular location, once we chopped off the land for the library and once we chopped off the land for the townhomes, now we have a single property, and by the time you do all of the setbacks, you end up with not that much of developable land. And so you almost have to have a lot of commercial together so that you don't have the setbacks, chewing up all the land as well.
Agreed.
But to answer your original question, by changing it now, you would add an extra step.
And there's no harm if we keep it the way it is, other than your desire to have GF1. Is that correct?
Until the city were to pursue putting something on it, that wouldn't be a problem.
But we would have to rezone it before we expanded the library.
Or use it for any other interim.
True. Yeah, we wanted
If it were to be an interim park space or an interim
soccer field.
soccer field or something like that, we would want to rezone it prior to that too. Because I think anything that the city is actively using that lot for would fall under the government facility use.
If the city owns it, they're not gonna sell it to anybody, this particular spot.
Okay.
So, you know, it's kind of, you know, I understand where you're coming from, and you're right. But in this particular case, it's never gonna happen, because the city owns it. So,
I mean, the only
I-
way that I could foresee it happening, and I would still assume the library would be a usable space, is if the library got a huge grant. Some donor said, hey, we're gonna give you this land north of town because my dad died, he loved the library, and here, you can build whatever you want here, right? That would be about the only thing, but even then, I don't know that the city would sell it. They may convert it into something else. At one time, it was discussed to be the police station. There's been lots of discussions, but I think you're correct in the fact that I don't think the city at this time has any vision of that being anything other than city-owned property.
yeah, it's something that I feel we have a responsibility to just go ahead, get it conforming now. And it's too bad, but, in some cases, but in other cases, it's not. People that use the library and want the library. And, I mean, my wife was librarian for, I don't know, 30 years. Yeah. Gosh, 40 years. And, she tried to use the library, and it just doesn't have the resources. She goes to Ankeny. And so we need a bigger, better, library. And that's something that the council needs to take the next step on, which they have, and that's rezoning the land so it, or from a library standpoint, resident standpoint, I think it serves our people better in this case, although it's a shame that we still continue to lose commercial property, but we are in the process of developing more of that where the growth is.
What doesn't, I wholeheartedly agree that we need a larger library. What makes more sense to me is building a library on this plot of land and changing and making this area the council and the old library, and then keeping that commercial and making this commercial and whatever. But we had some outside consultants evidently tell us a different story.
Well, and this can't, well, not what we're sitting in, but that part of the building cannot ever be anything other than the museum because it's registered. So we can't convert that part ever, is what I'm told. I could be wrong on that.
I mean, you're wrong. It's, you can change it, but it has to go through a lot of steps to do that
It's-
because
okay.
it's a story.
It is an onerous process.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we probably would never do that then.
Yeah.
But yes, now this particular structure, I don't know, council has not decided what they'll do. Tear it down, make it back to the original. There's been all kinds of discussion on that, but this won't ever be able to be that until we go down the path of the many steps to take something off of the historic registration.
Maybe we should rezone this commercial.
Yeah.
Great commercials. We're gonna tear it down if we don't need it.
Oh, you mean this part of the building?
Yeah.
I don't know how I don't know how it
But-
works.
That's a step in the future.
Right, like
We're
I
gonna
don't,
get everything else done.
right, I don't know, because it would have to be CTS, because obviously there's not enough parking for any use, even including city hall.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't know what will be done. I don't know if it'll be rented out. I don't. It's not a very nice space. Just leave it at that.
Just an additional question, with the Masonic Lodge, since that was not on the agenda, make a recommendation on that.
Is it part of your?
I had neglected to
You
add
can,
that.
you
but
still
you're-
can though, because we're having council initiate rezonings, so it's not an official recommendation, I guess, in that regard. It's an initiation.
Okay. Because, and I should have caught it, but essentially what you would do is if you rezone the parking lot to GF1, you would leave an island of C1. That's essentially the Masonic Lodge, the green space, and the driveway. That's essentially what your C1 district is, which is not the intent. So,
we ready for some recommendations? I'm sensing some people might vote differently on different things, so if I'm gonna make motions, I'll probably make them individually. Just go through individual votes. Does that sound good?
Sure.
And I guess on item one, should we have a call for a motion and maybe have it fail due to lack of a motion? Was that a good way to handle that?
If you just do no, if the consensus is no action, you would just take no action, no motion, nothing, and it would fail that way.
And I think, is that where we are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then I would make a motion that we recommend to council that they initiate rezoning for the 5 portions, or 5 lots along Hillside Drive from with addresses 405, 409, 413, 417, 421 from GF1 to R1.
Second.
Roll call, please. Do you want roll call or do you just want?
You can just do it. Well, no, we better do roll because it's going to be different. That way I know who did what.
Yep. Roll call.
Oldfest,
Yes.
Prignitz,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel. You're still muted, Justin.
Sleep.
Tuned out. Up for something.
We'll just go with that.
And
And triplet.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. Vogel.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
And I'll make a motion that we recommend to council that they initiate zoning for the address 516 North 3rd Street from GF1 to R1.
Prignitz,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
triplet,
Yes.
Oldfest.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion that we recommend to council that they initiate rezoning of 1500 and 1600 West Broadway Street, which is the public library and city-owned lot from C2 to GF1.
I'll second.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
triplet,
No.
Oldfest,
Yes.
Prignitz.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion that we recommend to council that they initiate rezoning of the city parking lot along West Broadway Street from C1 to GF1. Since no address is provided, I will say, as described in staff and engineer comments dated November 16, 2020.
And we could make the address 309 West Van Dorn as it's part of the fire department.
Okay, and
That
I
makes it
meant my statement as such.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Oldfest,
Yes.
Prignitz,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
triplet.
Yes.
And I would also like to make a motion that we recommend to council that they initiate rezoning of the Masonic Lodge from C1 to CTS. That's located on 3rd Street.
I would get the official address.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Oldfest,
Yes.
Prignitz,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Hankins,
Yes.
Bowersox,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
triplet.
Yes. All right. That wraps that up. Time for reports and particulars. Who wants to?
I have, or will we meet in December?
We may. So I was originally going to put your chair and co-chair on, but then we may have a site plan amendment. Don't know yet. So.
All right, I'll refrain from comment till then. I have nothing more. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, right?
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
I do not have.
I'm sorry, I don't know. who you-
Oh, we should introduce him.
I am Cody Olson, I'm the new building official.
Oh.
As of early, right,
Mhm.
so, going on about 2 months now.
And so what's your role? I'm sorry.
The city has currently outsourced all the building inspections to Safe Build, so now it'll be an in-house process. Kinda still going through the beginning steps of transitioning through that, but we've been working on obtaining the certifications required. We're getting there.
Wonderful.
And the answer to your question is we're not quite sure where his responsibilities are gonna end, and where more personnel will start, so.
We're very excited to have him. We all estimated, himself included, that it would take, we'll say, several months to get a lot of the certifications, and he is just checking those things off, one right after the other. It's very impressive.
Your office right in here then, I assume?
I am in the corner of the police department right now
Okay.
until
It's kind of tight space.
some other stuff gets done and then eventually be across the street.
Great.
I offered he could have my closet office and I would just sit wherever. Chelsea didn't like that idea. And Public Works has added some office space out there, so he may or may not move out there in the interim when they're done with that, but nothing like starting a job and not having a place to sit.
Commissioners, anybody?
Just a quick comment. Staff normally does a pretty good job on their write-ups, being surprised on things. And tonight's write-up I thought was particularly stellar in that we had a lot of history to go through and a lot of options, and just did a great job on writing that up, on kind of making tonight's meeting probably a lot shorter.
Yeah, well said.
Yes.
Yeah, good job.
Gold star, Travis.
Can't take all the stars. Kathleen had a hand.
And to be clear, you are thinking we potentially might meet in December? We don't know yet, right?
I will know by Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Next Wednesday.
Yes.
I will know by next Wednesday.
We need to talk to Chelsea.
Got it.
So if we don't meet in December, then in January, we'll do the chairs and co-chairs. So be thinking about, so Vogel will, if that's how you want to do it, Vogel would move to the chair role, and then you'd have to nominate a co-chair.
And that is typically,
Rotation.
yes.
Yeah,
So who's up?
Yeah, we started doing, or I thought this would be the first round of doing that every 2 years. Has that already been 2 years? Or has it just been 1 year?
Oh, I don't remember.
I
Did
thought
we
that-
make that with you, or
No,
did
I
we,
don't
did
think
you,
so.
I think
I
she said
definitely
she wanted to do it after her, if my memory serves. But I could go back and look at my notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we've done it yet, but we have the rotation set up
We do.
for co-chair also.
We do.
Okay.
I mean, you still have to. You
Do
could override the
Yeah.
rotation, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
getting at.
and
It's up to you
There
guys.
could be nominations and stuff
Mhm.
like that, yeah.
But I would put all that in there too. But I'll double check on that for 2 years.
On that note, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Awesome. Need a second.
I'll second.
Ken?